Once upon a time, there was an old king, and there was the king's dying wife. On her deathbed, she made him promise not to marry again unless the new wife was as beautiful as she was. The king agreed as he sobbed, and the queen passed away. Not long afterwards, the king went searching for a new wife, but every woman in the kingdom proved to be less beautiful than the late queen, and so all were unfit. All except the king's own daughter. While people protested this union, the king had gone mad and made his decision that he must marry the princess no matter what. When approached with this news, the princess devised a clever plan to make the marriage impossible. "I'll do it," she said, "if you can bring me these 4 things." "Anything, princess. Name them," said the king. "I want 3 dresses, one made from sunshine, a second made of moonbeams, and a third made of the stars. Lastly, I want a mantle made from the fur of every animal in the land." The king agreed further, and the princess was sure she'd outwitted him. And saved herself from this awful arrangement. But the king managed to produce every item she'd asked for, and that night she donned the cloak, took the dresses, and ran into the night. She wandered far, far away into another kingdom and stayed in its forest. The young king of that kingdom wandered into the forest with his dogs the next day, and upon realizing she was a young woman and not some strange cloaked chimera, took pity on her and gave her a job in the royal kitchen. Here she was dutiful, but kept the coat of 1,000 furs on and told no one her name. Because of this, the other cooks and servants referred to her as Thousandfurs and would bully and belittle her. Some months passed, and a royal ball was announced. Oh, how the princess missed parties! She would listen to nice music and eat nice food and have wonderful conversations and dance to her heart's content. She decided to sneak to her room, remove her mantle, and put on the dress made of sunshine. She made her way to the ballroom, and upon entering, the room was filled with her radiance, shining not only of the dress, but of her own beauty. The crowd was so awestruck by her presence that no one batted an eye when she walked right up to the young king and began to dance with him. As they danced and conversed, the king acknowledged her ring. My, what a lovely ring! It is something only a princess could wear. As they were dancing, the princess felt warm feelings of nostalgia. The music, the food, the conversation, and the dance with the king. Suddenly, memories of her kind father who had once danced with her since she was small turned to ruin as the image of the mad king who had tried to marry her took over. Shaken from the trauma, the princess hastily excused herself, not even having given her name, and ran straight to her room. The young king sent guards to look for her, as he must at least know her name, but they could find no trace of horse or carriage just having left. It was too late now. The princess had resumed her mantle, and no one would recognize her. A few more months passed, and another ball was announced. Once again, the princess missed parties and, despite her trauma, decided to attend again. This time, she removed the cloak of 1,000 furs and wore the dress made out of moonbeams. Once again, the crowd was awestruck at the radiance that entered with her, and she began dancing with the king. They conversed for longer, but like last time, she was reminded of her awful past and, panicking, excused herself out again. She hurried to her room, put on the cloak, and no one was the wiser. Even more months passed, and a third ball was announced. Now the princess had had more time to heal and move on, and so she was sure that she would finally enjoy herself to the fullest at this event. She removed the mantle and put on the dress made of stars. This time, she entered the room but was shocked to see the crowd watching the king dancing with another maiden. Heartbroken, the princess ran back to her room and soon was in the cloak of 1,000 furs once more. She solemnly returned to the kitchen, where she was tasked with making the soup for the king. Here, she remembered the king had acknowledged her ring and thought, if there is truly a chance for us, this will be it. She dropped her ring in the soup. Moments later, the king had her brought out before him into the throne room. "Are you truly the one who made the soup this evening?" he asked. "Yes, Your Highness, it was me," she responded. He stood up and walked to her. The crowd believed he must be cross with her, but instead he knelt down and said, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He slipped her ring back on her finger and removed the cloak of 1,000 furs, revealing her identity and the beautiful dress made from stars to the entire room. Everyone was astounded to see that quiet little Thousandfurs was actually this radiant princess. Even the kitchen workers who had mocked her and called her such names had felt bad and apologized. The king asked her to marry him, and, having finally healed from her terrifying past, she accepted. And they married and lived happily ever after. The end.